Have you ever noticed how people expect you to feel a certain way even when you don't? What if the real danger in life is not being evil, but simply refusing to pretend? Today we're diving into one of the most unsettling and unforgettable novels ever written, The Stranger by Albert Camus. At first, this story feels simple. A man lives an ordinary life, makes a terrible decision, and faces the consequences. But underneath that surface, the book explores something much deeper. It asks a disturbing question. Does society punish people more for what they do or for how they behave emotionally? The story follows Meursault, a quiet office worker living in Algeria. He doesn't fake emotions. He doesn't pretend to care about social rules. He says what he thinks, even when it makes people uncomfortable. And because of that, he slowly becomes an outsider in his own world. This isn't a book about becoming successful or productive. It's about honesty meeting loneliness and the strange pressure to act like everyone else. And the uncomfortable part is this. Many of us are already doing exactly what this book warns against. We hide our real feelings just to fit in. Let's break down the most powerful ideas from this story and see why this short novel still feels incredibly modern. The first major idea is that society often cares more about appearances than truth. Early in the story, Meursault's mother dies. At her funeral, he doesn't cry. He doesn't act devastated. He feels tired, hot, uncomfortable, and emotionally distant. Now imagine that situation in real life. Someone loses a family member, but doesn't react the correct way. People immediately start judging them. They think, why isn't he crying? Or why does she seem calm? Instead of asking what the person truly feels, they focus on whether the emotions look acceptable. That's exactly what happens to Meursault. Later in the story, something terrible happens. But during the trial, people become obsessed with his behavior at the funeral. They talk more about his lack of emotion than the actual crime itself. That's what makes this story so powerful. It shows how uncomfortable people become when someone refuses to perform emotions for society. And honestly, this still happens everywhere today. On social media, many people feel pressured to display sadness publicly after tragedies. At work, people fake enthusiasm to seem professional. In relationships, people sometimes say things they don't truly feel because honesty feels dangerous. The world rewards emotional performance, but Meursault refuses to perform. That doesn't mean he's cruel all the time. He simply doesn't lie about feelings he doesn't have. And society cannot tolerate that kind of honesty. The takeaway here is important. Most people fear rejection more than dishonesty. So they slowly build a fake version of themselves that feels socially acceptable. But the longer you pretend, the more disconnected you become from your real identity. A small action you can take from this idea is simple. Stop forcing emotional reactions just to satisfy others. You don't need to exaggerate feelings to prove you're human. The second major lesson is about emotional numbness and disconnection. Meursault moves through life almost mechanically. He works, eats, sleeps, swims, smokes cigarettes, and spends time with people without deeply connecting to anything. Nothing seems to truly matter to him. At first, this makes him seem strange. But if we're honest, many modern lives look very similar. A lot of people wake up, check their phones, go to work, scroll online, eat dinner, watch videos, and sleep. Days repeat over and over until life starts feeling emotionally flat. You're busy all the time, but emotionally absent. That's why this story feels surprisingly modern, even though it was written decades ago. Meursault isn't always suffering dramatically. He's simply disconnected. He experiences life physically more than emotionally. He notices sunlight, heat, sweat, noise, hunger, and exhaustion more than purpose or meaning. And that's actually one of the scariest parts of the book. Not every empty life looks tragic from the outside. Some empty lives look normal. Think about someone who says, "I'm fine," every single day, but secretly feels detached from everything around them. They're functioning, but not truly living. This idea forces us to ask an uncomfortable question. Are we emotionally awake in our own lives? Or are we just moving through routines automatically? The takeaway here is not that emotions must always be intense. It's that awareness matters. If you never pause to ask yourself what genuinely matters to you, life can slowly become numb without you noticing. A practical way to apply this is by creating small moments of awareness during your day. Walk without your phone. Eat without distractions. Sit quietly for 10 minutes and honestly ask yourself how you actually feel. Most people avoid silence because silence reveals uncomfortable truths. The third major lesson is about the absurdity of life. This is one of the core ideas behind Albert Camus' philosophy. The book suggests that humans desperately search for meaning, fairness, and order, but the universe often gives no clear answers. Bad things happen randomly. Good people suffer. Life doesn't always reward morality. Sometimes events happen without any deep reason at all. That realization can feel depressing at first, but Camus takes it in a different direction. He argues that once we accept life's uncertainty, we can stop exhausting ourselves trying to control everything. Meursault eventually realizes that the universe is indifferent. The world doesn't guarantee justice, meaning, or happiness. And, strangely, this realization gives him a kind of freedom. Think about how many people spend years trying to meet impossible expectations. They want everyone to approve of them. They want life to make sense at all times. They want certainty about the future. But life rarely works that way. You could do everything correctly and still face pain. You can plan carefully and still lose control. The absurdity of life means there's often no perfect explanation. And once you accept that, you stop wasting energy demanding certainty from an uncertain world. A relatable example is career pressure. Many people believe there's one perfect path they must discover. They panic if they feel lost at 25 or 30. But life is rarely that organized. Most people are improvising far more than they admit. The takeaway is this: you don't need complete certainty to keep moving forward. Sometimes freedom begins when you stop demanding perfect answers from life. Now here's something most readers miss about this story. People often think Meursault is emotionless, but that's not entirely true. He actually experiences physical reality very intensely. He notices the heat of the sun, the brightness of the sky, the smell of the ocean, and the discomfort of his body constantly. What he rejects is not life itself. He rejects artificial meaning. That's a huge difference. Many people spend so much time chasing status approval and social expectations that they stop experiencing the present moment completely. Meursault, despite all his flaws, remains deeply aware of the physical reality around him. And that creates a strange contradiction. The man society calls emotionally disconnected may actually be more honest and present than many people pretending to live meaningful lives. That's what makes this novel so unsettling. It doesn't give easy heroes or villains. It forces you to question what normal really means. The fourth major lesson from this book is that honesty can isolate you. Most people think honesty automatically leads to respect, but in reality, complete honesty often makes others uncomfortable. Meursault answers questions truthfully even when the truth sounds cold or socially inappropriate. He doesn't pretend to love someone just because he's expected to say it. He doesn't fake grief to satisfy public expectations. He doesn't create emotional stories to make himself look better. And because of that, people slowly begin seeing him as dangerous. That idea still applies today. In many situations, society rewards carefully managed personalities more than genuine authenticity. Think about job interviews. Most candidates present a polished version of themselves. In social groups, people often hide unpopular opinions to avoid conflict. Online, many people build personalities designed for approval rather than truth. We live in a world where performance is normal. That's why someone who refuses to perform can seem threatening. But the book also shows the downside of radical honesty. Meursault's honesty lacks emotional awareness. He rarely considers how his words affect other people. So while authenticity matters, honesty without empathy can become destructive. That balance is important. You don't need to become fake to survive socially, but you also don't need to weaponize honesty carelessly. A relatable example is relationships. Imagine someone asking, "Do you care about me?" A brutally cold answer may be technically truthful, but human relationships need emotional understanding too. The real takeaway here is that honesty becomes meaningful when it's combined with awareness and responsibility. Being real doesn't mean becoming emotionally disconnected. The fifth major lesson is about accepting mortality. As the story moves towards ending, Meursault finally confronts death directly. For most of his life, he avoided deep reflection. But once he realizes his time is limited, something changes inside him. He stops pretending that life will last forever. And, surprisingly, that awareness makes him feel more alive. This is one of the deepest ideas in the entire novel. Most people avoid thinking about death completely. They distract themselves endlessly with work, entertainment goals, routines, and noise. But when you forget that life is temporary, you also start taking life for granted. Small moments lose value. Ordinary days become invisible. You assume there will always be more time, but there won't. And strangely, remembering that can make life feel more meaningful. Think about how differently people behave after surviving a serious accident or losing someone close to them. Suddenly, simple things feel important again. Conversations matter more. Sunlight feels warmer. Time feels valuable. Mortality creates clarity. Meursault eventually understands that every human being shares the same ending. Nobody escapes death. Status doesn't protect you, and society's judgments lose importance in the long run. That realization removes some of his fear. Because if life is temporary for everyone, then maybe we should stop wasting so much energy trying to appear perfect. The takeaway is simple but powerful. Awareness of death can make you more present in life. You don't need to become obsessed with mortality. But remembering that your time is limited helps you focus on what genuinely matters. Now here's the surprising truth most people completely miss in this book. The real conflict is not between Meursault and the law. It's between individuality and social expectation. The court claims it's judging his actions, but emotionally society is judging his personality. People are disturbed because Meursault refuses to follow emotional scripts. He doesn't say the expected things. He doesn't display the expected feelings. He doesn't act according to social rituals. And that scares people because it exposes how much of society depends on performance. This happens constantly in real life. People are often punished socially not for being wrong, but for being different. Someone who doesn't celebrate success the right way gets judged. Someone who grieves differently gets criticized. Someone who questions social norms becomes uncomfortable for others to deal with. The book forces us to ask, how much of our personality is truly ours, and how much is simply learned behavior designed to gain acceptance? That question is uncomfortable because most people don't fully know the answer. And now we arrive at the most powerful idea in the entire story. Freedom begins when you stop living entirely for external approval. This doesn't mean ignoring morality or becoming selfish. It means understanding that if your identity depends completely on social validation, you will never feel truly free. Meursault loses almost everything, but near the end of the story, he finally stops pretending that life must follow society's expectations. For the first time, he fully accepts reality as it is instead of forcing it into comforting illusions. And in that moment, he experiences a strange peace. That's the deepest lesson from this novel. Many people spend their entire lives chasing approval without ever asking whether the approval actually makes them happy. They follow paths chosen by family, culture, trends, or fear. They suppress emotions. They perform identities. They avoid uncomfortable truths. But eventually pretending becomes exhausting. This book reminds us that authenticity has a cost, but living dishonestly has a cost too. And sometimes the second cost is even greater. So here's one practical action you can apply today. Pay attention to one situation where you usually perform instead of being genuine. Maybe you fake enthusiasm. Maybe you hide your opinion. Maybe you say you're okay when you're not. You don't need to become brutally honest overnight. Just notice the mask. Awareness is the first step toward authenticity. And finally, here's the thought this book leaves us with. The world may never fully understand who you are. Society may always prefer comfortable performances over uncomfortable truth. But a life spent pretending eventually feels stranger than loneliness itself.